So I'd like to offer you today 3 points and a poem about the kingdom of God in Mark. When I learned about preaching, it was that you always had to make 3 points and a poem. So I'm going back to how it used to be. So the first point is that in the kingdom of God in Mark, what you're seeing is that there is a clash of vision that's happening in this gospel book. Jesus comes and he has this vision of the kingdom of God on earth. And it is a kingdom where God will be in charge and that people will willingly and happily live in accordance with God's wisdom. And he calls it the kingdom of God. He could have said, well, this is my vision for how life should be. He didn't. He said, this is the kingdom of God, and it's going to come on earth. Well, when the officials and the powers that be heard that somebody was going to bring in a different kind of kingdom, well, they didn't like that kind of talk because the kingdom belonged to them. They were the officials. They were the rulers of the kingdom. And don't let anybody oppose them. And so the very use of the phrase, the kingdom of God, was subversive, was galling to the officials, and it was enticing to the common people who felt the burden of the system that they were living under. So who is this rabble-rouser who's coming in as if he is going to be a king and as if he's going to overthrow this ruling system that we have and take over? The officials do not like this talk about the kingdom of God. The common people love it. But then the common people get confused because they think, he's going to bring down the rulers as they currently are, and we're going to have an uprising and we'll become the new rulers. And then Jesus started to say, well, the kingdom of God will be like a mustard seed. And the common, ordinary people think, duh? A mustard seed? We want you to lead a peasant revolt. And you're talking about mustard seeds? Now, we know today that the mustard seed is not the smallest seed. And we know that the mustard plant is not the biggest plant. Well, that doesn't matter. What is galling to the people who want a peasant revolt and want a leader who is going to improve the quality of their life, they don't want anything so small as a mustard seed. They want Jesus to think a lot bigger. They don't want to be seeds that are spread on the ground, that are going to take a whole season to develop. No, They want action. They want to be equipped to take on the legions of Rome. And they want actually just to turn the world upside down. They want to have the fortunes that the current officials have, and they want the current officials to have the poor conditions that they have. You know, that's not much of a change. So what Jesus has to offer actually turns out to be kind of galling to both the Roman officials, because he's audacious enough to say, I'm bringing in a kingdom, and it's annoying to some of the common folks who hear not the words of a peasant revolt, but they hear the words that don't resonate, that don't ring true. They hear words that confuse them. Some of you know the prayer of the unknown Confederate soldier. I thought about it when I was thinking about this clash of visions that happens around the theme of the kingdom of God in Mark, where there's such different visions. So the prayer of the unknown Confederate soldier goes like this: I asked for strength that I might achieve. I was made weak that I might learn humbly to surrender. I asked for health that I might do great things. I was given infirmity that I might do deliberate things. I asked for riches that I could be happy. And I was given poverty that I might be wise. I asked for power that I might have the praise of all humans. I was given weakness that I might feel the need of God. I asked for all things that I might enjoy life, and I was given life that I might enjoy all things. I got nothing that I had asked for, but everything that I had hoped for. Almost despite myself, my unspoken prayers were answered. I am, among all humans, most richly blessed. It will take the entire book of Mark for people to see that the vision of a kingdom of God that Mark brings, that Jesus brought, was going to answer their prayers, but not in any way that they had thought they would. Well, the peasants and the very poor were startled and confused by the concept of the kingdom of God being so small as to be like a seed or a mustard seed or any of the other metaphors that they use for that. The second point I'd like to say is if there's a learning for us to take about from what Jesus says about the kingdom of God being small, I hope we will take encouragement, because small is significant. Do you remember that in 1986, how many years ago was that? 31 years. 31 years ago, on January 32? Yeah, 32. Yeah, because we changed years. It's 2018. Good. On January the 28th, you'll remember this, those of you who were alive at that time. January 28th, 1986, the NASA Space Shuttle, the Challenger, exploded 73 seconds into takeoff. Do you remember that? Killed the 7 people that were on board, 5 of them astronauts, and 2 of them experts in something. And when they found out what happened, they discovered that there was an O-ring that had been put into the building of the Challenger, and it was not designed to withstand cold weather. And consequently, the seal that was supposed to have been made with that O-ring, that gasket, the seal wasn't made correctly. So you think about the Challenger and a space shuttle that we're going to send into space and circle the universe. It was that little O-ring that crippled it on that mission and that created the disaster. So don't underestimate the power of the small. That's a kind of a negative and an opposite example of what Jesus is giving us in the kingdom of God, being like these smallest of seeds, these little things. Because I want you to take heart. You know what? Most of us are not going to be able to save the world today. Most of us are not going to do anything that's so big today and wonderful today for the plight of humanity that we'll get our names on Twitter and we'll get thanked publicly. You know, we're not going to do that. We can't get the American government back to work. It's not our job, and we couldn't do it even if it was our job. There's big, grand things that need to happen. But I want you to recognize that I think one of the things Jesus is saying about the kingdom of God is that these little actions that we do on the course of our day-to-day lives are vitally significant. The kindness that we show to one another, the smile that we gratuitously offer, may make someone's day. You know what? It may even turn somebody's life around. Just the little gestures, the little acts. So I think in the kingdom of God, it's the little things that count. Because we, just like Jesus, we don't have the capacity to change the whole system. But little step by step, act by act. There was a wonderful metaphor that was done in, that happened someplace down in the States, and they had this huge tract of land, and it belonged to the military, And so they decided that they would have tank exercises on this huge plot of land that they had, and use it for the training and equipping of their military for war actions. So they got it all fenced, and they got their equipment all moved in. And they went out on their first operation, and the ground collapsed under the weight of the tanks. Do you know why? Because it had been uninhabited land, and there was gophers that made their homes there, and they had done all these underground tunnels, one after another, just another little tunnel, another, and attached them all. And with all those little tunnels and little holes, they could not. They brought down the weight, they collapsed the tanks so that they couldn't play their war games. Small is good. And in the kingdom of God, any small act that we can do to move that kingdom, to move the teachings of Jesus ahead, it's good. Do it. The third point is, oh, it's 11 o'clock, sorry. Anyway, the third thing is a case of bad editing that turned into a prophecy. Turned out to be quite prophetic. Some of you will know the name of Jim and Jean Strathy, the musicians who created lots and lots of great music in the 1970s and 80s. And Jim and Jean Strathy published music books. And they had great distribution. It wasn't just a little local organization. I mean, these were music books that went out and that carried their music far and wide. So, of course, they were published professionally. They were edited professionally. And when one of their books came out, Jim and Jean were appalled at first to see that in their song about the kingdom of God, the G had been left out of the title. And it was the kingdom of God. And I heard Jim and Jean tell this story, and they said, like, at first they were just appalled that such a huge editorial error could have got through the stringent editing that they had. And then as they realized what the kingdom of God could mean, they began to celebrate the error. They began to say, what if in our contemporary world we started to believe that we were kin to each other, that we were, as a humanity, all joined together in a common kinship? What if we believed we were kin to the world, that the earth, our home, was our mother, our relative? What if the atmosphere was our kin? And I don't know if people still tell that story, if Jim and Jean still tell the story, but I wonder if the kingdom of God isn't a much more friendly, contemporary way to speak about the message that Jesus wanted to give to the people. That it's not about turning the world so that there's new rulers and new millionaires and there's new poor people. It is about a change in mentality, one small step at a time, that allows us to see we are all connected. We all belong together. We are brother and sister to each other. We are cousins with the animals and the creature world. We are children of the universe and of the earth. Well, if we acted that way, that would be very subversive. Well, thank you for listening. And let's sing now.